Turn it up. Johnny, God Almighty! That's my bring in. That's what they call a radio intro call in. I like a hottie toddy to get everything fired up. This is Sweat Equity Podcast. I'm making our guest laugh before I bring her in. Sweat Equity Podcast. I'm your host, Law Smith. We are without Caleb Fuddy. He is working on the scouting block, which if you want to check that out, he's basically filming a bunch of high school boys. Wait, I did that wrong. No, he's filming high school baseball. Okay, so he's becoming an intermediary for high schoolers to get their tape to colleges and pro scouts. So basically, he goes to tournaments. In the next 6 to 8 weeks, we may be without Caleb. So just like Sater, we keep an open chair for him, like Elijah. He's with us in spirit, and I know he's bummed that he can't. I think he got stressed out about I don't know what to do. I'm like, dude, just go fucking handle it. That's what our podcast is about, just going out and doing it. Let's see. Anything off the top of my head? Let's say subscribe on iTunes, rate, review. That's the cheat code to get us up the rankings a bit. Tell a friend. If you've, we've been getting great feedback, and it's awesome to hear when people are like, hey, man, I'm starting to repeat myself in client meetings with clients that listen to the show. So that's awesome in the sense that, A, I'm turning into an old man. I'm not going to Jerry Maguire you, but I'm the oldest 31-year-old you know. And basically, I think it's cool when we get feedback from a lot of people that are listening all over the world. That's kind of what's cool about this. We don't have a huge audience. It's like between 500 and 1,000 people. But the people that are listening are emailing me or messaging me or hit me up on Twitter, and they're really into it. So let's bring in the guest, writer extraordinaire, old friend of mine, Liz Newman. Let him hear your voice.
I like that you said friend after old. You made me nervous.
Old, I said old, like Ole Miss hottie toddy.
Friend.
I went O-L-E, not O-L-D.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's how I go old English like that.
Yeah, I like hottie toddy too.
So you're yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to party at Ole Miss at the Grove? That's all I'm saying.
Or Athens.
Is that where
I went to UGA?
You did?
Did you forget about that?
Yeah, I know. Well, look, you're kind of a rival, but I, as an Auburn guy, but I always had a good time in Athens.
How can you not? If you don't have a good time there, something's wrong with you.
It really is one of the best. That's got to be top 5 for me of college campuses.
I think it's the best, but I know I'm biased. But it has the most bars of any college town in a square foot area. So
that sounds like a towny statement.
It is. We all learned that.
I know, but I'm saying if you never left, you're like, did you know REM's from here and
Widespread Panic?
Yeah, and we have the most bars. That's like when someone's like, Tampa has the most strip clubs, per square mile. I'm like, that's.
People still bring that up to me when I tell them where I'm from.
It's not even true.
I know.
Do you
know?
It not? I think Portland, Oregon. Because I got in a fight with someone and they said nah, and.
Yeah, Portland, Oregon is huge with strip clubs. They've got to have us beat. Everyone just says Mons when I tell them I'm from Tampa. And I'm like, yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. Yeah, every dude on the East Coast has been to Mons at some point. Shout out to First Amendment kind of pioneer, Joe Redner. Hey, man, that guy fought the system like Larry Flynn. He just didn't get the credit.
He did.
So you're writing.
Yes.
So I wanted to bring you on because we were kind of talking about this right before we started. I think being a writer is super interesting, but I feel like it used to be back in the day you'd go to undergrad somewhere. You might go to a good journalism program, maybe at a master's program at Ohio, I think has a good one. right?
Wait, like Ohio or Miami of Ohio?
Just the regular Ohio.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Am I right? I don't know.
No, you're right. Just so many people down here went to Miami of Ohio, so I get yes. No, I think they do.
Okay, well, like you go to like you'd go
Right.
get your master's. I'm talking like, let's say 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah,
something
that was
like
the thing. Or creative writing program like at Emerson, like a really good one like that.
And then I'm talking pre-internet that most people have. So I don't know what that would be. Let's say 95-ish. Before that, you really want to like go work for a paper, and you'd want to go or be a published author. And I feel like we're in this weird area now where writers, you guys are like Jamaicans in New York, where it's like you have 8 different jobs.
That is so dead on. I mean, I have a ton of jobs.
So it's like I don't understand how to like you. It would drive me crazy because you're a freelancer, but you're like a super freelancer.
Yeah, you just do so. It's true. Like you romanticize the idea of being a writer, but most of the time you're not really. Like I don't want to say I don't write what I want, but that's not. You're not going to write everything you want to write to make money. I mean, that's just not realistic.
Sure.
I mean, you write a ton of like sponsored content, partner content for people who advertise on these sites, and then you write like. I mean, luckily, the goal is to get to a place that like you pick and choose what you want to do, who you want to contribute for. But you're right, like it's nothing like it used to be, where you would go to like a journalism school and then you like polish it off with like a creative writing program and try and get a job at a paper, because paper readership is obviously depleting.
Yeah.
And you need to have people just want to know that you can. People just want you to be able to write a story that clicks to death on social media. That's like what it's about.
Clickbait.
They want clickbait. I mean, they do. That's why those lists. I mean, BuzzFeed was really like the pioneer there. It's
The
like,
listicles.
they want the list. Those have you seen? Those don't die. I mean, they don't.
I know. I mean, I know about it because for our company, Tokabaga Consulting, solving how. Yeah, that's our new
Great plug.
That's going to be our new branding message. But I'd say our core, because my core is really, I got kind of a. It's weird. Like I don't have any degree to show anybody, but it's like I know more about Facebook advertising than almost everybody that you could probably find, and I can do it quicker than anybody.
I'm right there with you.
Because I worked for some really scummy guys at one point. I can't even bring it up on air legally. Like it's one of those kind of things. But they knew all the ins and outs because they're on the not so cool side of all this stuff.
Right.
Like getting accounts deactivated and all that shit, and using multiple credit cards to make ad accounts kind of stuff. So I've been on that side where it's like, what's the clickbaitiest kind of stuff?
Right.
And it's weird, man. It's like I feel like, all right, I want to get back to the listicle area, but I'm saying like I feel like writing now, like being a journalist now, you almost go lowest common denominator immediately, which is kind of, I think it's going to suffer. It's going to hurt kind of the written word.
I mean, I agree with you.
So you get out of college or you get out of your master's or whatever, and you go, and it's like your first job's going to be like, all right, I need top 10 whatevers for this, or we need to write content. I don't even care what it's about. It just needs to be slutty. The image is 90% of it.
Or now everything's also moving into video. I write a lot of scripts now for people.
Yeah?
Like a lot of video
Final
scripts.
draft? What?
Yeah, I do a lot
Give
of
me your
short-
password, please.
No. I do a lot of video scripts for people because you've seen how those are taken off now. Like people just don't want to read as many long form pieces as they used to. If they are long, they want it to be a list. Like you even helped me write that one bucket list story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you chimed.
That's me being really high at night and like, oh, cool.
Well, it worked because that thing clicked off the charts because it was a huge bucket list of things you have to do in the U.S. and you position it that way. Like it was for Thrillist, and they were just like places you have to go before you die, and you're like, holy shit, I need to know.
See, I like the listicle, but I see the math behind it too.
Yeah,
so it's like,
it's totally calculated.
Okay, we're gonna pull in from all parts of the country because everybody wants to see their thing represented,
Right.
and if it's not on there, they're gonna be an asshole in the comments or something.
Oh my god! And you love that when that happens in a sense. Like those, like the last couple pieces I've written have been personal essays, and you saw the one like I did 2 that happened to be like kind of weirdly timed. I did Why I Left Miami, which was I left Miami 4 or 5 years ago and lived in New York, and then I did one Why I Left New York.
Yeah.
It just happened to be a few months after.
I read that one.
And then people just like went nuts on me in the comments being like, this girl she just left Miami. She's never happy. And like, But in a weird way, you kind of want that to happen because when people start like going nuts in your comments, all it does is drive traffic.
Right.
Like that's all it does. Like I had like 100 people slamming me. I'm like, go, keep going, just bring it because you want that to happen.
And it almost feels like the producers, the
Yeah.
play. It's like, well, look, it doesn't matter what it is as long as it creates fervor.
I know it's kind of it's weird. It's like you want that, and you're just like, and part of me is like, I can't be sensitive about this, but I'm happy the traffic's doing well.
Well, yeah, I think you always want to find that mix. Like, you definitely want people to have a conversation about what you're writing.
For sure.
And
you want it to affect people.
But you don't want it to be like them kind of projecting personal shit on you.
Oh my God, it's unreal. Like, it was actually the one that I did, Why I Left Miami, got a much. The Why I Left New York one, people were like, oh, this is exactly how I feel. And a lot of people said that about Miami too, but that one people took a lot more personally.
Why?
I think it's because I read them both over again, and it's a totally different story. The Why I Left, because I was so ready to leave Miami and go to New York. It was not a hard decision, whereas the Why I Left New York story is a little bit more like romanticizing New York. Mm-hmm. So all New Yorkers are like, oh, yeah, I totally get it. Like, I always love the city. But people who lived in Miami are like, why are you shitting on our city? And I'm like, no, definitely not shitting on your city. But they took it to mean that, like, I was telling them they should leave. And I'm like, no, this is just why I left. But that's why like the comments went insane because everyone was just like, I'm not leaving. You should never come back here.
What was the title of it? Because that's 90% of the written part of it.
That's a great question. And listen to the title. And that's
I'm a great interviewer. So
this is really, I was very smart because it says Why I Left Miami and Regret Nothing. And that last regret nothing changed the entire focus of the piece. So that was like an extra burn for people, I think, who were reading it. Whereas the other one was why I finally decided I had to leave New York.
Yeah.
Not even that slight change in headline.
Sure.
You can see makes a huge difference. Like, oh, she doesn't, there's just a whole different angle there.
Well, the Miami one sounds like as you're, if I'm visualizing it, it's like as you're driving up 95, you're flicking off everything in the rear view.
I reread it again. I'm like, oh, maybe I do see why people took it that way. Like,
once you got out of the shitty traffic,
I was just like, bye.
You're flicking off everybody like deuces.
I know.
And then with New York, I feel like my thing is like a lot of our age group kind of moves to New York, and then it's like, fuck, dude, I can't. This is too much after a while. It's not like you can't even live in Manhattan anymore.
Yeah,
it's priced out.
That was definitely, it was such a different decision because, and that's, I think, why people in that story were like more praising me because it's a different decision to come home to. Like, Tampa's home. It's always been in the back of my mind to possibly come back here.
Yay.
But yeah, I know.
Look, I love Tampa, and
I'm happy to be back. I mean, it's like nothing, I just go right. It's crazy, like how much you just like go back into it. I'm like, oh.
So about half our listeners are outside of Florida, and so I always try to explain like it can be a good thing to kind of like what people's perception of Tampa is like. I was telling you I was headlining a show last night in like a redneck part of Florida, and like I was talking about like, yeah, Florida's fucked up. Like we got every shithead from every other state. So really, like my stance on that is like if you're at an airport bar and you meet someone that's like born and raised somewhere in Florida, you should buy their drink because they're fucking dealing with your grandma, grandpa,
that is so true.
Your shitty uncle that has an opiate addiction,
right.
like child support, schmalt sport. I'm moving to Naples, like fucking like that's what we're dealing with. So I don't know why we get the brunt of it because my friends I lived in LA for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I remember when you were out there.
And it was like, yeah, I'm still close with all my friends. I was lucky in the sense that I had a good group of guy friends out there, and I still keep in touch with them a lot. But like they'll send me a link to a weird Florida story, like guess who fucked a dog in Hillsborough County, and you're like,
I get
which
that
story, bro?
Too.
Which
know,
story?
I mean.
There's 4 today, so tell me which breed. Which one are we going with?
Which breed? Dog?
So, like, but now I just shit on my own point. But Tampa really is like, I think we're gonna see more of a rise of people want to. You're seeing a migration out of the suburbs to a centralized kind of community,
right?
But you're also seeing like quality of life where you're like, well, damn, dude, I couldn't live in Austin, in the real Austin I want to live in.
Yeah.
Denver's already getting too
I thought about
maxed.
Austin.
I
love it there.
I was interviewing for a job in Austin for Facebook the Facebook small medium business sector.
Oh, nice.
And I was starting to date my now wife, but I was like, I know this Asian's for real. So she has a sideways vagina, so it's great.
Well, then you did the right thing.
That's literally the first thing she said to me when we first talked. And we had a sloppy makeout session not too far from where we're doing this podcast. Anyway, but I'm saying like Denver, I think has second highest increased real estate rates compared to San Francisco.
Right.
And it's like you don't need to be like, it's good. You can always fly out and go kind of experience a lot of stuff, but you don't need to always be surrounded by it.
I know. That's kind of how I started to feel. And like, and going to New York and being a writer, I think was just something I wanted to do. Because it is true that like if it pushes your career about as far as you can possibly get.
What made you want to do it? I didn't know you, see, we knew each other growing up in grade school, but
right.
I mean, it's one of those things. I was never like pulled you aside at like 7th grade. Like, hey, what do you want to do with your life?
I don't know. You probably did.
I probably did. I was a weird kid, but like,
you probably got really serious and asked me something like that, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, I've always been like an old man. But like, my thing is like, what made you've always wanted to write, or you just were proficient in it and you were like, hey, I think this is a career, or do you love it?
I do love it. I've always wanted to do it. I dabbled off in other things first, like PR and advertising, and then just made the jump to like, I started like, just like anything else, I just kind of like waded in. I was like freelancing a couple pieces as I had other full-time jobs and just realized how much I liked doing it, and then eventually just jumped into doing it all the time. In Miami, and this is what I wrote in the piece that some people liked and some people hated, was a great place to start doing that, because you can sort of just like, I was starting to write for the Miami Herald like right away,
really?
with no real experience. Like I could not just go and start writing for the New York Times,
Oh yeah.
So there was like something to be said about starting in a smaller media market like that, and then like if you bust your ass there, and I said this in a quote, you're a unicorn. Like I just like was hustling and like doing as many writing gigs as I could. And
cocaine.
Then when I got
that's all everybody's hearing.
Clearly, I had to fuel it.
Cocaine and coladas, yeah.
So,
mm-hmm.
It's Miami.
Yeah.
And then when I got the Thrillist job, that was when I was the Miami editor, and that is what I moved to New York with, because they're based out of New York.
Okay.
And from there, I just made the decision, like I wanted to advance. I kind of hit a wall, like I couldn't go any further, and I was like, if I really want to see how much I can do as a writer and like really try and do it, I have to see. So that's why I went to New York.
Yeah, man. So I talk with our friend growing up, Brian Thomas.
He's in New York. He's a great photographer.
He can be a great journalist too.
He's awesome.
He's a super smart guy. Went to Ivy League school. I think that's why I brought up
St.
Ohio.
Mary's.
He went to our elementary school. I don't give him any plugs on this show. No,
I just did.
I'll edit it out. No, I won't, because I'm lazy. But my thing with that is like, I talked to him a lot about this, because we were talking about this right before we started. Like comedy, I see comedy is like, there's a lot of fucking comics, and there's not a lot of space.
Yeah. Oh my God, there's so many.
And I feel like writing's got to have 40 times that amount.
Right.
Because anybody that writes a blog thinks they're like a legit writer.
Yeah.
So like, I have people like, I have people in the open mic scene that are like, hey, do you know my friend? He's a comedian, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I don't think he's ever done a paid gig ever.
Right.
And that's where I can kind of, that's like your Mendoza line. That's you're hitting 200 kind of deal. With writing, I talked to Brian about this, where I go, what do you do? Because he's kind of at the top of like, he's one of the best photographers like out there at photojournalists.
Right.
And his shit's on the front page. Like the last time I stayed with him, he had to leave at 4 a.m. to go shoot something at Governor's Island, I think. And is it Governor's Island?
Right.
Yeah. All right. I was thinking of the Music Fest, and I was like, is that?
That's where it is.
I'm not going to act like I know New York very well. But he had to leave, take a picture or something, and then sure enough is on the front page.
Yeah. He's big time.
And we've talked about it. He's like, there's not a whole lot you can go from here. Like, he's on the cover of both Wall Street Journal and New York Times, which he's not even like, it's like, oh, I'm only a liberal kind of thing, or I'm only on the conservative paper. Like,
right.
You're the best. He's at one of the best in the nation at what he does. And he's still like, there's not more opportunity. To me, that's like, all right, we got to figure out something new that's avant-garde and that kind of way. But at the same time, I sense that frustration. I see that with stand-up comedy, where we're having kind of a boom right now, but I feel like we're going to have a saturation point again, like the 80s, where there's too much going on, too much low quality. Everybody has a special now, and they're not that great. I feel like people rush them, and that's not good. And then the other shoe's going to drop, and that'll have a trickle down effect to jabronis like me. And so like I feel the same way with writing, because it is so fragmented. Like,
and there's a ton of talent. I mean, it's like unreal how much talent in New York. I mean, it's just everyone's amazing. It's very hard to stand out. That's true.
Well, so like what I guess my thing is like, all right, let's do it this way. If you're talking to someone that's in high school and they want to be a writer, what would you tell them?
Like I'd be like, well, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure about that? It's a thankless job. No, I would tell them, like, I think the best way to do it is just start. You want to I mean, these people, a lot of these publications, especially in New York, have massive intern programs. Like, try and get in one of those as early as you can, especially they want like these young people, and like see what it's like, really. Like, because like I said, there's the whole romanticizing of being a writer. Being a writer is nothing like what I think people think it is. Like,
so tell us, because that's what this is about. Pragmatic advice, like what is it really like?
I mean, it's so different for everybody. I mean, I don't just write.
But
like,
mostly, like I'll give you an example, so you can think about it for a minute.
Okay.
Like I tell, like people are like, oh man, comedy must be sweet, and I'm like, or running this consulting business, it must be awesome, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And it's like 95% of it is not fun.
But I feel like that's kind of the case for
everything,
a lot of jobs.
everything,
exactly.
Everything
so
you want to succeed in.
Right.
Yeah,
like,
it shouldn't come.
Do I not love what I do? No, of course I do. At the end of the day, like, I'm lucky to do what I like to do. But yeah, 90% of it, I'm just like, want to shoot myself. Like, it's like a lot of like shit I don't want to do. A lot of lists, a lot of, a lot of partner content. I do social media for a lot of people, which I like to do all of that. But this is to really make it, quote, as a writer, you're gonna have to take on a lot of projects. You might not necessarily be like, well, this is my dream project, but you have to pay the bills, and so you got to do a lot of stuff like that. But the goal, or like what it was for me, is to get to a place, at least the kind of, even that sort of content was at least in like the umbrella of the type of content I like to do.
Yeah.
Which is
sure
that worked out. But yeah, it's just being like, I'm not just like at home like penning my novel. Like, I'm not like, I wish I was, but like. You almost like anything else, and you do comedy, so you probably know what I mean. It's like when your field is like also your passion, it's hard. Like, I don't write as much of my, like, that's why those personal essays, when they come up, I'm like, oh God, I love to do that, because I don't always write my own thoughts and feelings anymore. I'm like just writing other people's stuff.
Yeah. So and that's where I was gonna go. You have autonomy. You know, like, so like that's the thing with stand up. It's self-destructive in a way, because you will definitely walk over. You'll definitely try to, save. You walk over dollars to save a nickel or whatever.
Yeah.
Just so you can say whatever you want. Like, I know I could probably get more work if I was clean, but I'm not a clean comic, and I don't want to be.
Right.
And I want to talk about adult things. And
right.
Like talk like adults do. And that's just not my thing. And I know I've squandered opportunities in that way.
Yeah.
But no one's assigning me that, and so I feel like that's the big difference, is where
it's definitely a difference. But now I've gotten like, this is what I would tell the high school kid. I took everything. Oh my God, I took every project someone gave me. I yesed myself to death, and I would definitely tell someone to do that, because that's the only way you sort of really. First of all, people want that. Like, if you just like take every job and you were really going after it, they're gonna be like, okay, we can rely on Liz. We can rely on this person. But then you also sort of find out what you just like to do and what you don't. There's really no other way to kind of figure it out more than that. Like, I was like, well, I can never write like X, Y, and Z again. I just can't do one more thing like that. It just,
like what?
I mean, I got a little burned out on doing. I used to do so much food stuff, which I don't hate. I literally, but like, I was like, if I write like one more like cocktail roundup, I just can't. Like,
we just lost all our Asian listeners. They just dropped out.
Thing is, I still do them, but like, there was a point when before Thrillist, NBC launched this site called The Feast, and they launched it in Miami, and I launched it with two other writers, and we did everything you could ever imagine with that kind of stuff. So. But I still do it now. It's just like those types of lists, and after a while, I'm like, I just can't. So you just pick and choose the things you want, but say yes to everything in the beginning if you really want to try and be a writer.
I agree. I mean, we've been talking about it with our consulting business, and I'm like, I know we need to figure out our niche markets and stuff, but I don't want to externally say, hey, we can't handle that.
Right.
You know, like if it's medical, I might give it to a preferred partner we have, just because that gets a little bit muddled with insurance and stuff. But in the way a lot of medical stuff works is a little bit it's hard to navigate.
Right.
But I never say no. I'll just say yeah, and then turn around and go, how do I figure this out?
I still have a problem with that. And like since I've been here, I mean, it's a good problem to have when you get a ton of work, but I'm like, I need to hire somebody. I need someone to like help me do like some of this other stuff. Like, because writing, again, you don't just write, you're sourcing photos, I mean, it's like
research
across the board, just someone to help me with that kind of stuff.
Discovery element.
Yeah. There's just so much more than writing the words, like draft, and then you have to put it on social media, because I said that's what it's about now, drafting the tweets and the Facebook posts that you're going to have to go along with that content. Like, I do all of that. So it's like,
can we bitch about social media stuff for a minute?
Yes.
All right. So here's the deal. Here's why and I might take this audio out and send it to clients that don't understand this, because I have the same conversation over and over, and sometimes I'll just take pieces of the podcast out and be like, we usually video it, but I just didn't today, just because I don't like our setup and blah, blah, blah. There's a camera over there that we usually...
Is it on?
It's not on.
Okay.
I was sensitive to... Because I didn't tell you about that either, so I was like...
I think Will Wellman did. He's like, he might record it. I'm like, oh my God, really?
Shout out to the Eco... what's his website?
Oh my God, I don't remember. No, I feel terrible.
Cut that out.
Oh my God, I hope he doesn't hear this.
All right, so... No, none of my friends listen to my podcast. They hear me bitch about all this stuff anyway. So my thing about social media management is it's actually two people that don't do it. It sounds very silly.
Oh, 100%. People are like, that's not a job.
But people don't realize
it is a huge job.
It's fucking hard, because you basically are like the West Wing.
It's really hard, and I do the same thing you do. It's very important.
Right.
It's like massively important.
And you have to have, like, I can't just find someone on Upwork to take over clients. Like, hey, here, can you do posts?
Right.
It's like,
do you remember how, like, when blogging, you brought blogging up earlier? Like, I feel like blogging has gone a little bit like that. I feel like that was such an early 2000s. Like, everyone had a blog, it's like the new thing. And the key to being a good blogger back then was being consistent.
Yeah.
And now it's you have to be consistent on social media. Like,
same with podcasts.
Yeah.
You can't just start one and go, we'll take
like a month off, or just like, you can't be like, people want to know what to expect from you. Like, they want to see something regular. So like, you know, I run Twitter and Facebook for a couple of startups, and like, it's just, that's why I tell them, like, it's so important to be regular on there. Like, you don't want me just posting like once every couple weeks. Like, it needs to be every day. Like, people see what we're doing.
Oh, I'll run you through the whole strategy if you want. Like, because so we have an intern here, and he also works for the radio station as well as an intern, and he wanted to do the social media management. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give you 10 minutes. I'm gonna tell you how this should go. I'm gonna kind of cut this down because we don't have the dry board to do it with. But I go, you basically start out. You go, what are our content themes? You know, so you're a bar, right? We're going to show behind the scenes. That's going to be one content theme. We're going to show drinks being made. That'll be another one.
Right.
We're going to show the events we have. You pick out like 6 to 10 different content kind of streams, I'd say.
Right.
All right. Then you go, what platforms do these go on? All right. Then you pick out, okay, Twitter, you have to tweet 7 to 10 times a day, or else you're kind of irrelevant. Facebook, you probably want to be in the 1 to 3 a day zone, because you don't want to.
No more than 3. I usually stick to like 1, maybe 2.
Depends.
Yeah, it depends. Everyone's different, but no one will see your posts if you like stack them up too much.
Right, and then you have to explain, hey, you know, Facebook does make money off of advertising, so
and
eventually
they will push you down if you don't do that.
Oh no, they'll kick you up right when you start, then push you down.
I know, it's crazy.
And it's smart, and I tell people
very smart.
I know that's like a fact, and so I tell all my clients, I go, look, we're gonna see a huge increase, and it's gonna be organic,
right?
And then we're gonna have to go, hey, spend a little cash here and there. But what I tell people is it's scalable, so don't get scary.
It totally is, and a little cash gets you a long way on there.
Oh,
you boost a post for like $10, and it's like goes to a shit ton of people.
And boosting posts ain't even that's like that's elementary shit.
I know, exactly. But
you got to get in that power editor. What up?
But even with just that, you can make a difference, you know?
So you got Facebook, you have Instagram. We're going to do a different strategy over here. That might be more behind the scenes because that plays better over there. It's very visual. You know, if you're writing good content, then we're going to put it on Medium first and then put it everywhere else. That kind of stuff. So, all right, now we have the platforms. And then you go over to like, now we're scheduling the times to do it.
Right.
Or no, excuse me. Then you got to make the creatives. You have to actually make the content of
the images and things like that.
Yeah, you got to write it. You got to write the copy. You got to double check it.
How far in advance do you do something like that?
If I'm good, I do every Monday and Thursday. I block out time. Because
like for a week's of posts or like a week.
Yeah, I'll try to get 4 or 5 days ahead.
Right.
Because you can't get too far ahead.
That was what I was going to bring up. And this is a big like school of thought difference between me and other people who do social media. I never like to plan too far ahead because to me, social media should be somewhat spontaneous. That's like what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
You know,
and we haven't even gotten to the comment quality control stuff. Where you have to be on top of that.
Oh God, yeah.
And it's tough for coverage. Like it's tough to find people that can handle it because what I explain to everybody is like, this is your PR.
Yeah, it 100% is.
I'm like
and your website, your Facebook page is kind of like another website for your company. I mean, it is.
This is you. This is this is your live feed, basically.
Yeah.
This is you expressing yourself while you're doing something else.
Right.
So you need to treat it as if.
And it's like a customer service line because people will tweet to me. Look how fast if you like tweet JetBlue, they're on it. You know, if you tweet like companies publicly, they're much like likely to respond.
Oh,
so you have to be on that too.
Oh, that's how I got on Twitter because a friend of mine said I yelled at AT&T, but I went on Fiverr, got a bunch of fake followers.
Yeah.
So it looked like I was somebody, and then they got right back to me.
I'm sure.
And I got a rebate, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, I'm doing that."
That's the secret.
Yeah. Well, comedians have a weird thing about buying followers. I'm like, there's no fucking. You're not going to the grave like that guy had 10,000 followers.
No, people do it all the time.
And a third of the people on Twitter are fake anyway. So
yeah.
I think there's like a third or a fourth.
There's like a ton
insane.
of programs you can use for. I mean, it's like unbelievable.
Well, Instagram's getting flooded with that too.
Yeah, they are.
Where it's like, all right, so if anybody's listening that's on Instagram and they see people just like getting the okay emoji or like that's cool.
Yes, like oh my gosh, it's crazy. Or if you have someone just go like all your photos out of nowhere.
I have like flooring companies and like
I know, me too.
like pool companies and shit, and I'm like, you guys,
like who are you?
You're the creepiest company of all time. Because it'll be like they'll go back like 4 months.
No, I literally get my phone and there's like 15 notifications from posts I made so long ago. I'm like, that's so terrifying.
I'm like, we know what you're doing.
Like,
okay,
get out of here. Get off my page.
But I wonder if we're more analytical than most, and most people are like, oh, cool.
Yeah, no, I think we are. I think you're right. I think for the majority of people are like, oh, nice. I was hoping I hate when I don't have 11 likes because it doesn't click and she'll show us the number.
Jesus. So, but like. I also talk about pulling content. How are we going to pull the content from what y'all are doing?
Right.
So now we've got to enable your employees or some of the admin people in your office to like, we're going to have to create a funnel to get this content. So it's like, it's a bitch. Like it's tough, and to do it at a rate that's not so goddamn expensive.
Right. Yeah.
That you don't, because they see social media management and they're like, what is that? Like I can post a couple things a day, and you're like, no,
it's
son.
just so much more. And like looking at the analytics, like everything, you have to know what you're looking at.
And I was telling a client, I was like, did you know using emojis is gonna improve your ROI?
Totally is
on your posts because we're all adult babies.
Some people like don't even write the words anymore. It's just a bunch of emojis.
Well, and there's also call to action.
Yeah.
So don't overuse a call to action.
Yeah.
Like some posts are going to be just more like what's going on, and then the other, use them sparingly. Like use them when you want it.
Right. And not every post should be about you. You have to want to aggregate other stuff. Like there's a whole strategy involved. People, I agree with you. It's the biggest misconception that people think that like, oh, I'll just go in there and post. I don't know. You need someone who knows what they're doing on social media. Is that important?
Well, and you also have to trust that the person handling it or the company handling it isn't going to have someone that gets wasted and writes some shit.
Don't drunk tweet. Drink and tweet.
Right. That they think they forget.
Look what happened to that guy, the Warriors guy. He got fired. Someone who tweeted something bad about Steph Curry and his daughter. Fired.
I didn't see it. What?
He was like some random real estate dude. Like no one even associated with the NBA. tweeted something like just really kind of shitty about Riley Curry, which is, Steph Curry's daughter, and Steph.
Sure.
And the company just went out there and was like, we're so sorry about this. That guy's fired. I mean, just fired him. I mean, like, I don't know.
Sure.
So you just have to be careful. The point is, you don't even have to be attached. Like, wasn't this like this guy was even attached to the NBA and he was still let go because of what he tweeted and people saw?
Yeah, part of me hates that and loves that at the
I'm
same
with
time.
you. I mean,
It's
I'm like, whoa, that was a little harsh, but like, but still, I'm just saying you have to be careful. I mean, there's been so many things that have happened on Twitter that people have gotten in trouble over.
So like I talk to clients, I'm like, look, usually I try to share some of the duties with them in the beginning so they understand what's going on. Like,
right. You mean with your social media person?
With my clients.
Oh, right.
I go, look, I'm gonna coach you up a little bit. When you're sending me content, if you're doing video or photos, landscape.
Yeah.
Put the phone horizontal.
Oh my God, vertical photos on Facebook are the worst.
Or
you heard it here first.
World star hip hop. I mean that's what it is. It's like it's always the black on the sides and
Awful.
you're like, dude, you could have gotten this way better. Use a little lighting, like just a little bit of that.
Get a filter on there.
But I'm saying like I'll try to do more weekly meetings in the beginning and try to like coach up and all that stuff. But
that's smart that you do that.
I guess I don't know. It is an efficient use of time. If they're on retainer, it's fine because it's part of it. But at the same time, it's like you don't want to come over too pushy. But I try to get over to people a lot of the time. A lot of the big hurdles I have are like why that's important, why your website's super important, why your branding visually, and you can see it on the drive board. There's visual and the messaging. They're two different things, but they're part of the same thing, and they need to be cohesive. And if you don't have that, you have to write in the voice too.
Yeah.
Of the thing you're writing for.
Mm-hmm.
You're ghostwriting.
Right.
So
being a writer a lot now is like a social media job. I mean, like, look at me. I do that.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big part of being a writer. It's
like, I think of characters while I do it. So like usually like my go-to character is like a upbeat like 19-year-old chick.
Okay.
Writing. So because if it's
she
me,
sounds like a Snapchat user.
Sure.
Yeah.
But actually but isn't like doing video of herself driving.
Yeah, no, good. That's true.
But like I'm saying, like I try to make it upbeat because if I write something, I'll write like just dark jokes or something, and it'd be like, I can't. You can't write in the way I want to.
Sarcasm only goes so far.
Right.
On social media for sure. I'd have that problem.
Yeah, and so I have to I try to delve into a character almost like I'm playing improv or something, and just go, okay, how would a really optimistic 19-year-old chick from USC write this, and just kind of go with that.
You have a new character for each client.
Try to.
That's a great.
Well, it needs
strategy.
a voice.
Yeah.
Because your brand has a voice.
Absolutely.
So, but I don't want to get. All right, I've bitched enough about this area. I want to hear what being a writer now. Like what do you see like going forward? Like what do you think?
I see a lot of it going more into even social media. I think that we're writing so much for that market now. Of what people want to see, want to share. I mean, like honestly, I think about it when I even first started at Thrillist, and we would just like all we cared about was like those open rates on the emails. Like what are the
Oh, we didn't even get to that.
Yeah, we're like what subject we would like spend hours like just like going into it. Like what are they clicking on the most? And it's really just transferring into what are they sharing the most on social media.
For those listening, if you got a MailChimp account or something, a good open rate's about 20%. Yeah. A good click rate's about 3 to 5 if you can get that percent. So
that is good.
You got 1,000 people, 200 will open. I can't remember if it's 5% of that or
20% is a solid open.
That's a really good open.
Yeah.
And you got to worry about subject lines.
Yeah.
So that's a writing job.
Also, emojis and subject lines are huge.
Improve your open rate.
I've done this. I work on one account that does that, and it's really helped. So emojis across the board. But yeah, so that's still obviously very important for email and newsletters. But now we've transferred in and be like, what are people sharing? What are they putting on Facebook? That is really just such a huge deal now. So writing where I think it's going, I mean, we're writing for that, the millennial.
So catching trends.
Catching trends, being on the top of the trends, knowing what people are just going to be like wanting to blow up to their own network. Like what they're going to want to put out there to their own people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like really where it's going. I mean, I think we're just more and more right. I mean, lists, obviously, I think aren't going anywhere, but it's more, it doesn't even have to be that. Just a trend story that really, really relates with people. How do you write that and who's sharing it and really digging into why they're sharing it? and making content around that.
So how do you procure that? I mean, fat Jewish aside, how do you
He
procure?
used to work at Thrillist, by the way.
Fuck that guy.
I know. I had
Steals
no
jokes.
idea he was going to turn into this person. He worked for like a little site we started, and all of a sudden he's the fat Jewish.
Sociopath. That
He was
steals.
just Josh when I knew him, and all of a sudden I'm like, what?
He's an asshole.
I'm with you.
Well, I mean, he knows better than to steal people's jokes and make them his own.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at Fuck Jerry too. I mean, like those
Same.
types of people. Yeah,
People tag me in these shit things. Like, check it out. I'm like, don't.
don't.
Just please, like, what is the other one? Like, beige something.
Beige sweater.
Yeah, I'm like, I think
That's his wife. That's Fuck Jerry's wife.
Yeah, but I think she at least
Or
like
cashmere sweater, something like that.
Yeah, something mundane. But it's like, dude,
How do you really feel?
well, look, I mean, comedy's self-policing. I don't know how writing is, but it
is.
Yeah, so you have to call it out.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with you.
I'm not going to Joe Rogan Mencia this, but I'm saying like,
your ideas are, you are very, it's sacred over those ideas. So yes, I would be pissed if someone took my like lines out of my personal essay. I don't know if they ever would, but I'd be like, hey.
Yeah, well, at the same time, it's like
an awesome horse comparison. Don't fucking jack that from me.
At the same time, though, you're putting it out there, so you can't be so pissed.
No, I know that's true. That's true. There's like a line.
There's a weird line with that for sure. You should get credit, but you shouldn't.
Or if someone credits, they just link back to you. It's pretty easy to give people credit. And that's why I think the Fat Jewish wasn't I mean, like, it's pretty easy if you're just taking their like, put their Instagram name on there. And now he's doing it. But, like, it's not hard to credit people.
Yeah, he's doing it after, like...
No, he's doing it after all that. But, like, same with, like, if you link... I hyperlink to pieces I think relate to mine all the time.
Right,
It's a very easy thing to do. I mean, like, give the people credit. Quote them if you want, but just...
I mean, we won't do it for this episode blog post, but, yeah, we should. But...
Google me.
So... I guess, like, where do you see it going? I guess more in that social media direction, but I feel like that's a fucked out term. Is there anything kind of... Because social media is like...
I mean, I shouldn't say just social media direction. I just think...
What about e-publishing books?
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, people are like, you barely even need a publisher anymore. People self-publish their own books all the time now.
So that's a whole other area of, like, you know... You used to have to go through now that's just the big guys, I think, that are...
I mean, they're still there and still important, but, like, will it go the way of, like, VHSs? I don't know. Like, where, like, people are just going to self-publish their own books. A lot of people do that now.
Well, it's going to be what I've thrown out on another episode. The term, everybody uses it like the Uber of this or the Airbnb of this.
Uber of this. That is so hugely used.
It's disintermediation. Yeah. That's a big word for me. So
that is a big word.
That's a big word. And so it basically, you're breaking down those companies don't need to exist in a lot of ways. If anything, they kind of hurt the art the way I've heard it from my friends that have written a book. Because you'll get notes and your lawyer says you can't do this. But the lawyer that read it doesn't really get the context. They just go, we could get sued.
Right.
And it's like, well, no, you can't get sued if it's truthful. And it's a lot of back and forth with that kind of shit. And you don't really need that. Now, you should have an attorney go through something if it is real life stories and all that stuff. But you don't need to go through Penguin or...
No, you really don't anymore. I mean, like, and I think that kind of goes back to what you were saying originally. It's just such a different time where, like, there was such a time where you had to go to journalism school and you had to do these certain steps to become a writer. And even with books now, like, you had to get an agent. You had to do so many steps. I took a nonfiction book proposal writing class when I was, like, in my early 20s because I was
nonfiction.
Because to get a book picked up, and this is still the case, like, it's not even about your book. It's about your proposal. It's proving how that book is going to do well in the market. Do you have a platform? Do you have followers? These are all things you need to prove before you even have a book, right? They don't even want you to have your finished book for nonfiction. They want you to have a chapter, like a sample, and then this kick-ass proposal of how your book's going to sell.
And what's the cover going to look like?
Well, I don't know.
No, I mean, like, that's... I feel like that's part of it now.
Oh, yeah.
Like the offering, the deck, or whatever it is.
Right, and, like, that even proves right there that, in a sense, it all relates. They want to know if it's going to share. They want to know if it's going to be popular, which is completely smart things to know. You have to know that. How's it going to beat other books in the market? You have to prove all that. So, but now... You can go and self-publish. I know tons of people who have done that, and it's been very successful for them. Put it on Amazon yourself. Like, you just get in there.
Yeah, I've thought about it with some of this stuff because you could put out like a short book, and you could just keep throwing out
Yeah.
like add a chapter at a time or something. You're
100%
like,
you can.
and that could be passive income if it's decent.
And people's attention spans are short. So like a quick little thing like that is not a bad thing. It's a great thing, actually.
Yeah, I'm shooting for the market of read it on your phone while taking a dump, but you'll like it so much that your legs will fall asleep.
That's
yeah.
I mean, that's just a huge goal.
Yeah.
That your legs will fall asleep and you won't realize how long you've been sitting there. That is a good read.
If you don't have a squatty potty and you put your elbows on your hand.
Like before you know it, you're just leaning forward.
Your legs will fall asleep. I don't think this is a woman thing. I think this is.
I mean, but yet I picture it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But
I mean, I know what you mean.
All dudes are like, oh shit, I got Wi-Fi and no one can bother me, and this is kind of interesting. I'm gonna read this whole thing from Vice, and then you're like,
But you need a short little thing to read. You know, you don't want it to be too long. I think you nailed it.
All right. So we try to keep this to about 45 to an hour.
Okay.
All right. So I guess. What do you want to do? What do you see the future? I know I've asked that a couple of times, but what do I want
my future to be, or I see the future?
Yeah, put it out there.
All right. I mean, I want to write a book. It's I think whatever most writers want to do. I would love to doing some of these personal essays has brought me back to like wanting to write nonfiction and things like that. But it's just, how do I find the time when I'm writing for my career? Because it's just like I work all the time.
Yeah. What's a normal like work week? What's it looking like?
God, I mean,
I feel like it's just a lot of admin on your side. Like it's a lot of calls, a lot of email follow-ups.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like, strategy calls, and then you like depends on who, and you kind of map out your concepts for the week. And I talk to all my editors usually at the beginning of the week, and then it's just like I'm just banging out content the rest of the week from that on. And I mean, it's a lot. I don't want to complain because it's like this is a good problem to have, but that's why I'm like, where am I going to have time to write my own stuff?
I feel like it's like being on the stock market back in the day. Like it's.
I wish you said 80s New York earlier, and I was like, man, I would have loved to live in 80s New York.
Yeah.
Just for like a little bit. Like,
yeah.
That would have been really fun.
I bet it smelled worse.
Probably.
The smells get me, man, every time.
Well, it smells pretty bad there now, so.
I know. Like in the summer when there's no wind coming in, and you're like, oh my god. There's no wind because of all the buildings.
I know.
It reeks, and then there's always a truck backing up. And
it's very loud. When I first got here, it was almost jarring at how quiet it was. Like I was like, I'm doing for one of my, and you guys can follow me on Snapchat, because for one of my editors.
What is it?
It's Liz N813, and one of them asked me to kind of document my transition back to the suburbs from the city.
Sure.
And it's been really fun because it's like a totally different thing. But like walking, like I am just so used to hearing like a siren or like a garbage truck in my face, like just everything. And I'm like, it's so eerie quiet.
Now I've got a Fitbit on. Do you have any of that stuff?
No, but these things are like, people are telling me to get one.
No, don't get Fitbit. I just get like an Apple Watch. I think they have the same shit.
All right.
I had to get it. My wife's health insurance. It was like if you do what a normal human should do in a day, your health insurance is better or something. I'm like, okay,
that's awesome.
I will do that anyway. But
yeah.
I look like a nerd, but I like having it on.
People love it, yeah.
Well, I like looking at it before I go on stage.
Oh.
Because
what, does your heart rate accelerate when you're up there?
Only slightly.
Okay.
No, beforehand.
Oh, well, that makes
when
sense.
I'm on
Anxious.
stage, it's not really. I think it's just like I'm always cramming for a test because I have material. I don't have it memorized. I never have a set list that's the same, and I do a lot of crowd work. So I'm trying to like kind of assess everything, like Jason Bourne in the back, like what's going on. Okay, this is a weird spot. They probably love Skinner. Okay, it's like 40,
they probably love Skinner.
40 old people here, and then so you're kind of assessing what's going on. Okay, the feature's doing really well. That was fun. Like they liked him. He did about 45 minutes of material in 30 minutes. He's really working hard. There's not a lot of breaks. Okay, maybe I can slow it down a little bit. Maybe that'll be better. So I'm like kind of strategizing basically,
right.
But you're doing it at like a weird kind of rate, and so I think that's why it's a little bit geeked up. And it'd be bad if it wasn't.
That's interesting to follow that though and see.
It's I like stats, so I think it's cool to like look at it and go like, okay, once I got on, now I dipped. Like I'm normally at a pretty high beats per minute.
And you calm on stage. That's interesting and good. Right?
Yeah. No, but yeah. Well, if you're not comfortable, then it's going to be a problem. Like, so like.
You can tell as a viewer, as someone who watches a lot of stand up, I love stand up. You can tell when someone's not comfortable.
Sure. Oh, yeah. It's like.
It's like the first thing you can tell.
Yeah. Well, there's always like, you know what? It's so weird. It's subconscious. You can feel it. Sometimes you can read people's stuff too and kind of bleed through a little bit.
100%.
But like this, I'm jacked up because I'm having a good time, having a good conversation.
I'm so glad.
I like gabbing like gals, but so it's at like 93. All right?
Okay,
It's probably
that's normal.
It's normal, but like so like beforehand, I'm usually sometimes at like a little bit higher than that. Just normally, I run hot. I can't. I've always have. I've always been sweaty.
I run hot,
as my friend Matt Fernandez says. Fat Hernandez on Twitter. You should follow him.
Okay, done.
He's one of the best. I swear to God.
I love new people to follow on Twitter. So
it's so weird when one of your good friends is like, I'd put him against anybody on Twitter.
Oh my God, I can't wait to follow this person.
And so like I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh shit. All right, I'm at 95 beforehand, and then I'll look at it if I can get like a little bit of like a flick on it while I'm looking. It'll be at like 75, and I'm like, how does this work? I don't know. And maybe that's just the zone. Maybe it'd be interesting if you were writing. I bet
that's exactly what I'm thinking about.
I bet those strategy sessions are fucking stressful. And then when you're actually in the zone.
When I'm actually writing, I want to know what that rate is. Because depending on the piece, I bet I get more worked up or less worked up. I want to know what that is. I might have to get one now.
Yeah, well, Apple Watch. This thing's done. This thing, look, I look like a fucking nerd with two of them though. All right, where can people find you? Any exiting advice?
If you want to be a writer, I mean, God, it's such cliche advice. You just have to kind of start doing it. There's really no other way to kind of figure out what you like to do. I mean, if you're in high school and college, get as many internships as you can. You can also blog. You don't get paid, but anyone can contribute to certain sites. I mean, if you even want to like get on there and blog for the Huffington Post, you can. They don't pay you, but you can get up there and like it's just start practicing and see what you like to write. I mean, I did so many gigs, like I took everything. So take everything in the beginning. And
that's really good advice. And I really get pissed at a lot of people that are like, oh, I can't do it, man. I mean, there's nowhere to do it.
There's everywhere to do it.
Fucking work for free until you get
Work
paid.
for free, and like I'm not gonna lie to you. Being a writer, like I said, a lot of other jobs I have to take to subsidize my life. It's not like the most high-paying career unless you really make it. So get in there and get as many things as you can. You can totally turn it into something. Maybe you're not gonna know unless you say yes to every job at first.
Right. But I get pissed. Like, I don't know how to do this, and this. I'm like, fucking YouTube, Khan Academy. There's shit crazy? Everywhere,
and
man.
I didn't know how to every single job I have taken, and like this is true. Every writing job, I was always like, oh my God, I can't do this. But you can't. That sounds so ridiculous, but you can't. You are thrown into it. But that is the best way to find out. Like I was terrified before I took the Thrillist job because they were exclusive only. I didn't think I was experienced enough, and then all of a sudden you're just doing it, and that's the best way you can do it.
Experience. What is it? Experience learning. Like,
yeah, you just have to be thrown in. As long as you work hard, I swear that's the difference. Like, because so many people will be like, I want to do this and I want to try, but like, if you do it, that's how you just like really get in there and work hard. You'll be fine.
All right, we got what's all the handles?
Oh yeah, well, Lizn813, LIZN813 is my Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. So it's very easy. Follow me, and then Google me and read my articles, and then like them on Facebook.
There you go. Hustle beats everything. I think that's the lesson.
It's all about that.
All right, peace.